Welcome back to the Mythic Dungeon International. It's the grand final time as we go into a Method v Method matchup. For the series and all the action, I'm Jack, and joining me right now, we've got Sours, Nagura, and Sloot. And it seems like fatigue has been playing a major factor today for a lot of teams. Nagura, you were just kind of saying how practice wasn't going perfectly for Method EU.
Yeah, so Fragments just told me that they were practicing in the back room while everyone else was playing, and it just didn't seem to be going that well for them. Probably exhaustion from the days before, or just practicing too much, I'm not sure. But yeah, maybe they're actually going to lose some games today.
Or maybe partying too much.
That's what happens whenever you hang out with Sloot. But let's just see how Thist has found both teams doing so far as we join her on stage.
Thanks, Jack. When I talked to Method EU, they told me they had already beaten all the best teams already, so they're feeling pretty confident. They've been practicing for the finals this whole time, while everyone else here today has been preparing to getting into the finals. And now we know Method NA make the runs they know they're comfortable with, but against Method EU, it might be a little bit of an exception. When asked Method NA about their potential matchup against Method EU, they told me they'd probably need to do some pretty crazy pulls to pull this off. And I am so excited about this matchup. How does the desk feel about this one?
I think with a smile like that, it'd be hard to be able to lose, Sloot.
I'm not sure what's going on with JB today. He's doing like a baby shark dance first, and now he's doing some kind of like arm clapping thing. But, you know, I mean, he seems to be in good spirits right now, despite the fact that they're about to face the real kind of overdog for all this, if you will, Method EU coming up here. So, I mean, they got a long road ahead of them. But if there's any team that is no stranger to fatigue and to kind of going through the lower bracket, it's Method NA. They did it on a weekly cup basis on a lower schedule in terms of a 2-day schedule. So, I mean, they should be pretty well accustomed here.
They should be indeed. And Siege Boralus is going to be starting us off in the series, followed by King's Rest and Shrine of the Storm. Fourth and fifth games, if we go to it, are going to be Underrot and Ataldazar here. So this can be a pretty grueling set of dungeons coming up on this one, Nagura.
Yeah, definitely. I think the first dungeon here, Siege, is already going to be very important because both of those teams already played Siege, but Method EU was just slightly faster, only 20 seconds between those two teams, but their strategies are vastly different as one of the teams plays Horde, Method NA, and Method EU actually plays Alliance.
We'll have to see as these differences unfold in the first game of our grand finals between Method EU and Method NA.
Here we go, the moment we've been waiting for, the clash of the two Method teams here in the grand final of the LAN in Sydney, Australia. And off we go in Siege Boralus, and what more fitting than a faction war here of Horde versus Alliance.
Yeah, we see Method EU starting off on the Alliance side. We see now actually gathering a bunch of mobs here. We've seen the strategies for most of the Alliance teams start very similar, where you have a huge pull at the very start. And Method EU was this one team who got 50% of the trash before they even engaged the first boss. While Method NA is playing Horde, and we just see the Shroud coming out of them, just skipping a bunch of mobs. So pretty much doing the exact opposite.
The exact opposite. We do know one of the key strategies of Method NA in this dungeon with an excellent time as well has been the double spotter play. So they have a lot of back-loaded trash. We do see a mass pull here, of course, with the line of sight that didn't go so well for Team D earlier today, but they have committed their bloodlust to it and have rounded all the marksmen up in the corner here as huge damage coming in here from Nerf Clap, and of course all of the DPS on that team. Method EU at 11% trash on the board, denying the running away with the Ring of Peace there to make sure everything is nice and congested in the middle. And you're absolutely right, Nagura. Method EU kind of prides themselves on getting about 50% of the trash before they even engage the first boss here, whilst Method NA focuses, as I mentioned, with the double spotter later in the dungeon.
Yeah, so Method EU not only is killing all of the mobs from the Alliance start, but they also jump down and do the whole Horde area as well, which is the trash that Method NA chose to skip. So Method EU just cleaning up all the trash area here to get as much trash as possible. And we see Mara's actually falling into the water.
He got hit by the shark! Oh, no!
He got hit by the slobber. No, Maris can't do that.
Oh, the slobber knocker pushed him over into the water. And for those who don't know, if you get knocked into the water here, you have, I think, 3 or 4 seconds, you get a debuff of a shark that insta-kills you. So Mirrors unfortunately became fish food there, and 1 death already for Method EU. Nagura, maybe you were right. They said they were a bit shaky in practice earlier. It's certainly not the Method EU we know to have that kind of mistake, but they're trying to stabilize and recollect themselves here as they moved over near the first boss's room, dealing with their first reaping, while Method NA is just on the edge of getting their first reaping going, but they want to deal with this boss first.
Yeah, so Maris did come back to the group now. He did release, so they didn't have to use any battle rashes here as the spawn point point is very close to them. Now you can see this dungeon is actually necrotic, so you can see now having a lot of necrotic stacks, almost up to 40, but the mobs are about to die, so he should be fine. And that's also one reason why we've seen mages in this dungeon, because mages can slow them up, so it's a lot easier for the tanks to kite, but none of these teams want that slow. They think their tanks are fine without them too.
Yeah, they think they want them, but they don't. Sergeant Bainbridge here, 29% right now, as JB does well to get away from that hook and re-kite Bainbridge into that next bomb, getting that not only huge amount of damage on the boss, but damage taken increase as he drops down to 13%. Method EU still chiseling away at trash. We know they want to focus a ton of the trash, and they're only now starting to get into the first boss's room, as the Nigger mentioned, they do clean not only the Alliance, but the Horde side trash as well, and then they'll be starting to work on Chopper Red Hook as well.
Yeah, so one thing to note here, actually, on the first boss, on Alliance side, the Vanguards that spawn throughout the boss fight, they actually just keep coming on the Alliance side. Well, on the Horde side, if you have 2 Vanguards active, there's no more spawning. So the first boss actually is slightly easier for Horde side, but because both of those teams are killing the boss so fast, you shouldn't get a third one anyway, so it's going to be fine for both of those teams, as Method and A already downed the first boss, and they're on their way to the next trash back here. As you can see, the commander is charging around. You want to make sure that you don't stand in that charge so you don't get stunned.
Oh, a bit of a misplay there for Method EU right now, is now actually ended up line of sighting Zaylia with a lot of Reaping Soul stacks and Necrotic stacks, and what happened is he actually ticked down so low that he procced his Cheat Death Trinket just over that misplay. Negro, we just saw in the last series how costly that can be later in maps, so now not going to have a Cheat Death on the tank for 6 minutes as they get ready to finish off their second Reaping, which they just did here after the 40% proc, and they pull Chopper Red Hook, the first boss of the Alliance encounter, which largely is the exact same mechanically as you mentioned, except for the add spawn rate and frequency between the Horde and Alliance versions. Method and A has moved well beyond that and is dealing with a spotter and their first round of Reaping, which is just about to be killed.
Yeah, another thing to note here is that Method U saved their Bloodlust up until this point. So Method A is going to have the Bloodlust available a lot earlier compared to Method U, just because of the difference in boss pull time, basically. At this point, if you look at the percentage, Method A is not actually that far behind at all. They're 10% trash behind, while 1 whole boss ahead. So it's still close between those 2 teams. And as I mentioned before, it's only 20 seconds between the 2 teams, as they've both played Siege already before in this tournament. So the one death, if it's such a close game, can actually matter the one shark death from Maris.
I love that view there of Lighty riding JB as he kind of leapt over out of the bridge. That was cool to see. Method and A wasting no time, though, with their second round of Reaping, has brought the spotter with them and has already engaged the second boss of the dungeon, Dread Captain Lockwood here, making sure that they shower down everything. And JB gets clipped by one of the frontals, though. Fortunately, it is not enough to kill him off, so he just manages to heal right back through. And here comes the Maraud of Reaping, the second round of Reaping that they killed earlier in the dungeon. Cannoneer firing left and right now as Captain Lockwood has disengaged back onto the ship. Method EU just about to finish, actually not even, they still have a quarter of the boss left on Chopper Red Hook. You know, something that we always comment in these dungeons, that you want to see Bloodlust for kind of an efficiency pull to cleave things down on top of a boss, but Method EU kind of just killed the second Reaping, had 1 or 2 trash mobs, and then engaged the boss and popped Bloodlust. So not the most aggressive pull in the world, especially out of a team like Method EU, Nagura.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like they're going a little bit slower than they did the last time around. So maybe it's really true that they are just exhausted today, and the practice didn't go so well either for them. Now, usually one thing that happens for Method EU, which is kind of a phenomenon, is that they actually have better times on live play, on tournament play, than they do while practicing. So maybe the same thing is going to happen again, and they do just warm themselves up and just play better here at the actual tournament than they were practicing. But right now, Method A does seem like they're ahead.
Yeah, they are certainly ahead right now, but we do know a lot of the most dangerous trash in the dungeon comes later on in a Dark Fathoms area with those double commanders and all of the, well, the spotter play, of course, the snipers, a lot of poison going out on the tank too, so we'll have to see once they get to that kind of break point or chokehold in the dungeon. Method and A now dealing with their next round of phase transition as they have rooted some of those deckhands on top of the ship to make sure that they just don't have to deal with them and to make it easier for these necrotic stacks to not apply to nerf just as much. Cannoneer about to hit 1%, they'll grab the cannon, shoot the boat, and re-engage the boss as they jump down. She's about 50% health right now. It's a very, very long encounter, Nagura, this one, because she just goes up so frequently. You have like 35 seconds, maybe 40 seconds of uptime on the boss before she disengages back.
Yeah, that's why sometimes on live service you do want to use that Bloodlust to make sure that you get one less phase, maybe, because it just takes so long, as you mentioned. Now, Method EU is on their way to Lockwood as well. They just have to deal with the trash in front. And one more thing to note is that Method A is doing this double spotter shenanigans shenanigans really where you keep the spotter from the trash before Lockwood. So you can see it in the corner here on Method NA's side, on the right side. While Method EU, the last time around they played this dungeon, they did not do double spotters. They only had one. So they killed off this spotter here that you can see, and they just went without it. But maybe they changed the strategy now, as the spotter is actually in the middle of the combat here.
Yeah, it is in the middle of combat, and they're well, they did use it to kill their third round of reaping here. I believe they still kept it alive, if I can see.
Yeah,
it's half health. Yeah, not too far from the boss right now. So they might have indeed adapted that strategy from some of the teams that they saw use it successfully. Really, just Method NA is the one that used it most successful, the double spotter that we saw from these Siege of Boralus runs in the prior series. Method NA here about to down the boss. Hopefully they get it before she disengages, because once she disengages, even if she has dots on her or anything like that, she will not die once on the boat. She'll stay at one health, not even 1%, just 1 health until she dies. But Method NA managed to squeeze past that as Lighty gets a dragon kick in and makes sure to stop the event of all the gunners shooting down the alleyway. Big pull coming in here for Method NA right now. Method EU has the advantage that they've already procced their third reaping, 65% trash, but are 75% behind on the boss that was just killed. So Method NA needs to make up some aggressive pulls, but Yoda getting chunked here and procs his cheat death right into the pull.
Yeah, so Method EU actually did kill off the spotter here, so they're only going to do one spotter just like they did the last time around. While Method NA, of course, still has their spotter from before Lockwood, so they're just going to drag it through the dungeon here, making sure that the trash gets hit by the spotter, by the friendly fire. But one thing to notice as well, that some of these mobs, the ones with the most HP, don't actually get affected by the artillery from the spotter. So you don't actually gain that much time, because those demolishers, as you can see, they're the ones that take the most time to kill. And if all the other mobs are that little bit faster or slower, in the end it's not going to matter, because you have to kill off the demolishers.
In the end, it doesn't even matter. Fragment's taking with a lot of health here. Finally gets down sub 30%, but gets rid of that bleed finally as he gets some healing support from Zalia. And Dread Captain Lockwood only now sub 50%. This boss just takes ages, as we mentioned earlier. So Method NA is using all this time to catch up on the trash that Method EU had an advantage over at 66%. Lighty getting chunked down here and just manages to stabilize as they're about to proc the third wave of reaping here in a moment. And there it is, 61%. Reaping will rain down on the group as they want to make sure that they slowly move around all of these mobs and clip them with the artillery strike coming down from the spotters that they have.
This is actually so difficult. It looks a lot easier than this, but you can see
JB
JB being
stunned.
stunned by one of the bananas here. And those bananas, as you can see, if you only have one ranged target, then they will also spawn in melee. They do prefer range, but you need at least 2 of the range to all go on them. So since there's only one ranged target available, the rest of the bananas will go into melee range. And the closer you are to the Buccaneers, the less of a travel time there's going to be. And if you're really close to them, it's almost impossible to run out of the spawn point, and you will be stunned. So of course, rogues do have something like Cloak to avoid it, but you can't do it all the time. And then there's so many other things you also have to watch out for, as you have the artillery from the spotter that you have to put on top of the mobs, and then you also have demolishers doing a frontal slam, and you have them do an AoE fear. So there's so many things you gotta watch out for as melee.
But we do know that Method NA are professional Mario Kart players, and they can avoid those banana peels at all costs as they pull everything they need. And this is where JB really kind of loved the strat that they had. They pull a bunch of the trash at the bottom. He mass roots them on the way up so they can slowly deal with these snipers at the top with the second spotter that they've just collected, and get rid of the snipers, which are so dangerous with their ricocheting shot. You can see the amount of kind of CC and crowd control. Finally, one round of shots get out. They've already done an intimidating shot. They've already done leg sweep. They've already done the shockwave. They get them down perfectly, and now they're going to use the spotters to kill the trash at the bottom.
Yeah, so if you look over at Method U's side, they're at the exact same spot that Method NA is now, because they could just shroud all the trash up until this point, because they killed so much trash at the very start of the dungeon. So now what they're going to do is they're going to engage their spotter as well. So from now on out, also Method EU is going to play with a spotter. They're only going to have 1 and not 2 like Method NA, but Nerf is dropping so low. I do believe something happened to him, and Yoda dropping very low too, but they should be able to recover here. But again, this is just such a dangerous pull for not only the melee, but also the tank, because if the tank actually gets stunned by one of those bananas, it's going to be almost a sure death for him.
That's actually exactly what happened there. Nerf got stunned by one of the bananas. That's why he got so low, but fortunately, he was already quite healthy when that happened. The stun's only about 1.5 to 2 seconds, so he managed to just get supported by JB, and no death there for them as the double spotter rains Hellfire down on all of the mobs, and the 4th Reaping Wave, which is now spawned for Method NA. They pull it over, or they're going to start pulling it over into Dark Fathoms area.
Yeah, and both of the teams actually have the exact same percentage at this point. They're both on 81%. This game is so close between between those two, as Method here is pulling the boss here, but only to reset it, because if you pull the boss, then the whole trash is going to aggro to you. So you pull the boss, making sure that you reset, but then Franklin's actually going down as he does have aggro. The cheat death was not available for him as he goes down. They do have a battle rest, so they do get him back up, but now it's 2 deaths for Method U. Well, Method A still has a super clean run and 0 deaths on their board.
Everything is rooted in the corner for Method U right now. They don't want to get too many of those necrotic stacks. Gingy taking a huge chunk of damage and now getting low as well. Zalia certainly has is a work cut out for him right now as everybody starts to stabilize, but they still have to get in the middle of all those mass-rooted mobs to start raining some of the spotters' artillery down on them. They just want to deal with the commanders on the side, which are not affected by the artillery fire. Shakib on the side of Method NA has proc cheat death as well. Yoda does not have that available. Both teams extremely vulnerable here as Nerf Clap has 2 stacks and increasing of the poison and is trying to get away to reset those necrotic stacks away from the commander, but Dark Fathom is right in his way. Fortunately, he has just enough space and gets back in on the commanders to try and DPS them down as they will engage Dark Fathom here along with the commanders in just a moment, keeping one of the spotters alive. Did they kill one of their spotters? I can only see one in the corner there, Nagura.
I'm not sure, but Method U is struggling so much with their pull right now. They did reset the boss over there, but now it's actually going down. They do have a battle rest coming out of Zalia, but everyone else is aggro now. Zalia even himself dropping low. You can see Zalia just having so many necrotic stacks on him because of the aggro. Marriage is slightly, barely surviving here, as Fragrance also has no cheat death available, so they're just struggling so much with this trash pull that they're doing right now. You can see some of the snipers here are CC'd in the corner, but the CC broke, and now they're just shooting random targets here as everyone's dropping really low.
This is just sloppy from both sides right now as Yoda goes down on Method NA. They do have the battle res available and get him up right away to try and finish off Dark Fathom here. It's going to be a very long encounter. Indeed, there is the second spotter. Quite low health, but definitely alive for Method NA, so they're still opting to use this double spotter strat, which will be hugely beneficial to them should they be able to pull it off on the last boss. Method and you finally shaking off the cobwebs and getting onto the Dark Fathom encounter as well with their 1 spotter that's left over from the trash, but they've accrued an extra not only 2 deaths on the board, but now they don't have a battle rest for pretty much the rest of the dungeon. This is not the Method EU we're used to seeing right now, and favor certainly towards Method NA.
Yeah, most definitely. Method NA has such a clean run, so they did have 1 death during this fight, but they still have another battle rest available in case something goes wrong, and it's a 10 seconds different as well from overall death timer. So Method NA doing such a good job here in Siege, and you can see that with the double spotters, they're also going to do the last boss fight just so much faster because the friendly fire from the spotters actually damages the tentacles as well on the last fight. So of course, if you have 2 spotters, you're just going to be so much faster compared to Method U, who only have 1 of them. So it's definitely in Method NA's favor. But we've talked about how difficult this dungeon is, so it's definitely things that can go wrong still for Method NA here.
2 spotters are definitely better than 1 when you find yourself on the last boss here on Vikkoth. But first, we have to finish off Dark Fathom, who has just reached the last 1/3 of health for Method NA, 35% right now. Method EU here at 60%, not too far behind. We do know how strong they are on single target damage, but not only do they need to overcome that 30-somewhat% damage, but an extra 10 seconds faster on the last boss with only 1 spotter. I mean, look, if there's any team that can pull this off, it is Method EU, but with how well Method NA has played, not only this map in the previous series a day or 2 ago, but here today as well, it's going to be near impossible to beat them.
I really hope their nerves are going to be fine this time around, because we've seen in the past Method NA playing against Method EU, and it's looking good for Method NA, and then something happens at the very end of the dungeon and they just somehow have a full team wipe coming in, and then Method EU is going to be the winning team after all. So let's hope something like that does not happen again for Method NA, as they're on the lead right now, and they're about to down Dark Fathom here, the second to last boss, and the only thing left for them to kill is the last tentacle boss. And one thing as well, that if you're Alliance, you have a much longer RP right after this boss. On Horde side, the gate just opens almost immediately and you can go through. Well, if you're Alliance, you actually have to wait 30 seconds or something like that. So it's even another a downtime for Method EU right after this boss here.
Dark Fathom keels over here for Method NA. That heads over to Vikkoth. As you mentioned, advantage to Horde here. They run right down and are ready to start the encounter with a double spotter. So Method NA right now looking quite primed to take this first match. Method EU still has 11% left on Dark Fathom, plus that bit of RP before they have access, and they have 1 less spotter, a theme that we're constantly going to be coming back to because this is a huge deal on this boss.
Yeah, in this last fight, I mean, there's a couple of things you're going to watch out for. Now, you see the debuff here on Yoda right now. One of them was on Lydie before. It's a magic debuff that, of course, can be dispelled or immuned off, but it does do a lot of taking damage if you do not dispel it. And also, when it gets removed somehow, we see Shakib actually proccing that, and he's going down. They do have a battle rest to get him back up, but J.B is dropping really low, too, as he got hit, I do believe, by one of their artilleries. And he does not get the rest off. Okay, now he got it off, but this cannot happen again for them. As I've talked about it before, they have to play well here this last set because now they're out of battle reses.
Yeah, they're out of battle reses, and he didn't. That was good communication by them. JB actually went and re-resed him on the side because there was sighted artillery chasing him, so he wanted to just make sure he was resing him in a safe location and didn't just instantly get him killed. Immediate dispel comes up on that first, on the first debuff that comes out. They always come out in doubles, so you'll have 8 seconds dispel later on, and you want to make sure that when you get dispelled, you're not near anybody else you will punt them quite far away. And these are the same waters from the beginning of the dungeon where mirrors became shark food quite early on. So you make sure you want to make sure you don't swim around in them. Spotter right beside the team here, making sure to move around it, because if you do get in melee range, it will hit you right in the face, even if you're not the tank. Here comes another sided artillery from JB that kites the rest of it in to get that gripping down as they get ready to finish off their second phase.
Yeah, and having a battle spotter in the last phase is not only difficult because you need to drag them through the whole thing and you need to make sure you see them somewhere, but you also have the double artillery on people, and of course it also causes an area of denial for your own team. So you want to make sure you place them in the correct spot, especially if you have 2 of them at the same time. As they're on their way to the last platform here, they do not have their Boralus available compared to Method U, but at this point Method U is way too far behind. Method NA only has to do this last platform. They have to kill off the gripping tentacle, and then they can shoot the boss. The only thing they have to do is get the last 2%, which is from the spotters that they're still alive.
Yeah, that should be no problem for them. And, Method U's only saving grace here is that they save their Bloodlust for the final platform, but there's just no way that's going to make it up enough time, especially when the majority of the damage that come on these tentacles is from the spotters anyway, and Method NA has 2 of them. So here comes a bunch of the artillery raining down. Gripping Terror is now at 40%. As soon as that dies, we only have to wait a few moments for that engineer to repair the cannon, and that means Method NA will be able to kill off the final 2 spotters and finish off the dungeon and claim the first. But Shakib reproc sheet death again. A lot of damage going out as Lydie has the dot going on him. He goes down right now. If they cannot res him, they're another battle as the tentacle finally goes down. They're going to have to wait just a bit and survive to make sure that they can shoot the cannon into Vikoth, and they do so along with killing the remaining 2 spotters and finally take the first game off of Method EU. Woo! That was a scary finish at the end, Nagura.
Big roller coaster ride on that one, but Method NA taking game 1 off of Method EU in Siege of Boralus, and you can even see it from the emotions right there. They're incredibly pumped up on this one, Sours.
Oh, yeah, that was a close game. They don't even know how close it was as well, because they're up on the stage. They're just doing their best they can the entire dungeon. I'm sure when they had those couple of deaths at the end of the dungeon, absolute panic probably sets in, right? It's good that they're able to, continue to play well, even with those couple of deaths at the very last couple of seconds even of the dungeon, and then clean it out. And you can see just how dejected almost Method EU looks. They know that they didn't have a good run this time. They had a couple of really funny deaths, Someone got sharked. People are getting meleeed by trash mobs. There's tank deaths. There's things that you really just can't have happening. Things that we don't expect to see out of a team of Method EU's caliber.
Yeah, I don't know who's happier here right now. Method NA for winning or Sours for seeing deaths on Method EU.
Well, let's talk about those deaths, Sours.
Oh, yeah, look at this. So Mirrors ends up getting punted off the side of the boat there and gets sharked. Those mobs at the beginning have a pretty gnarly knockback. And you see here, Fraggy runs over to go drop the thing, and he gets punched by the mobs. There's not enough threat on those. He just runs in, gets meleeed down, and then now, just a little bit later, ends up not having enough room to kite or anything to survive with, and he gets punched down faster. That was their last battle rest for the dungeon. And those 3 deaths, this ends up, it didn't end up necessarily. That's not why they lost the dungeon. Those deaths didn't help, but it shows that this team is still mortal, and they were just making other mistakes elsewhere that ended up slowing them down significantly compared to the last time they did this dungeon.
And in many cases, since we hadn't seen Siege of Boralus up until this point in the LAN environment, we were really kind of wondering who was going to be able to have that better strategy to be able to incorporate into it. And when we first saw Method EU, it looked like they were almost indestructible there, Sloot.
Yeah, they certainly were. But we've talked about it during season play as well. They look indestructible. Eventually, they got games kind of, just downed off of them, and it happened here again. And what better time to happen finally than in the grand final of the Grand Championship of the first season in Sydney, Australia. So Method NA's got to be feeling really good, but I think it even goes a bit deeper, Sours, with the communication issues. It wasn't just, for instance, Fragnance that died there because it was a threat thing. The mobs actually got rooted while he was running around. If the mobs are rooted and they can't get to their primary target and somebody's in melee range of them, you're dead. And that's what happened. So the miscommunication between him and Zalea, when should we root those mobs? So certainly a lot of errors that you're just not used to seeing from Method EU coming up here.
Yeah, they're going to have to be able to quickly address that and get ready for the next round, as we will be taking a quick break before we go into Game 2 on King's Rest. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Mythic Dungeon International. It's grand final time as we're looking at Game 2 coming up. Of course, if you'd like to support the prize pool for AWC and the MDI, be sure to check out the Transmorpher Beacon or Horde Alliance fireworks, as proceeds do go towards the prize pools for BlizzCon. Before we get to BlizzCon, we know which 2 teams of 6 will be going here, Sloot. But first, we have to dive into King's Rest to see who is going to be gaining an advantage in the series.
Yeah, I mean, King's Rest, we've seen this dungeon run cleanly by both of these teams tons of times over the course of the cup play that we've seen. So it really could be anyone's game. I think Method EU certainly usually have the more dominant strats, and they seem to be the more innovative team oftentimes coming into this dungeon. But of course we haven't. King's Rest is the first time we saw it just a few series ago in this tournament. So we haven't seen either of these teams run this dungeon just yet.
And at that point, it's going to be a big question of how well they're going to be practiced in on it, because they had to make sure they're getting to this point to begin with and practicing and drilling as hard as possible. So we're diving in and ready to go for Game 2 coming up right now in King's Rest.
Nagura, here we go right now. Oh, don't do it with the sugar. That's gross. Getting ready on King's Rest right now. Both of these teams, every time Nagura that we saw, just as I mentioned in the cup play, Method EU was always the team that when you got to this dungeon, they always had something new, something small about their pulls. Skip this part of the bridge, do this part of the bridge in this order. And this time as well, when I talked to Now just a few days ago, before the tournament even started, he said they had a completely never before seen pull pattern coming somewhere between Machimba and the bridge trash leading onto the council.
Yeah, it's a very small thing. I think it's actually going to be a reaping skip, the 80% reaping skip, which no one else has done before. And they figured, why did no one else do this before? They just came up with it. But it's still small things that matter, especially in a dungeon like King's Rest, because it's such a straightforward dungeon. And every little small thing can matter. As Method EU is pulling the whole boss room, as Method NA doing as well, and popping both of their Boralus here.
Yeah, there's an extremely dangerous pull here right now. And we're going to see the tanks get out of dodge real quick here. Now, we are in a sanguine environment. Again, the tanks want to make sure that this is kited just about as the mobs are dying, to make sure they stay out of sanguine. A lot of misplays came in here earlier from Abracadabra. It actually ended up costing them the match. So it's absolutely crucial that not only the tank has a proper kite pattern here, but that he's getting the support needed from the rest of the group in the form of Ursul's Vortex, Typhoons, Ring of Peace, whatever you can to make sure these mobs are not sitting in sanguine.
Yeah, and it's very dangerous too, because there's so many caster mobs that do so much damage to the tank if he's in range. That's why you see both of the tanks just kind of running around and kiting as much as possible so those deathly chills don't go through on the tank. And you see the champions still be alive for both of the teams, and once they are finished off, we will proc the reaping, and we will also see the reaping be pulled on top of the boss. But it seems like both of those teams are finishing off the mobs the very same second. Not like at the match before where Abra was playing against Team D. Team D was doing the trash quite a bit faster than Abra.
To be fair, they actually did it quite a bit faster than both of these teams right now, so this is actually a pretty slow finish to the trash for both method sides here, but pretty much at around the same time as you mentioned, that's what matters. They're facing each other and not against Team D here. Golden Serpent has been engaged on the side of Method, and they slightly faster over Method EU, but they're neck and neck now on percent. They have to make sure to not have a single hiccup, as we see that Cloak of Shadows come up from Ginger right now to make sure that he can sit in that Shadow Smash and just deal as much damage to the boss as possible. Now getting punted away from that area denial deals a fair bit of physical damage, but he wants to make sure that he keeps the boss in place as much as possible to maximize damage on their team. But Method NA looking real good and just maintaining this 2 to 3% lead.
Yeah, this is such an important game here. This match, King's Rest, is so important for both of those teams because every single small mistake can matter here and it will cause huge problems. As we've seen before, where Team D was playing against Abra, it was such a close match of just a couple of seconds in between those two teams. So you want to make sure that you don't have any of those goals go through to the boss like happened to Team D before, and you don't want to have any of those spit gold debuffs kill any of the members, as it is a tyrannical setting, of course. So the spit gold does do a lot of damage to each player.
Yeah, it deals an immense amount of damage, and it really starts to tax the healers by the end of the fight. They start running out of mana as well, and you just want to make sure, especially for a player, for instance, like Xaylia, who just likes to be as offensive as possible. We've seen a few situations during cup play from these teams that Xaylia just runs out of mana and is desperately doing what he can in cat form at the end to help finish off the boss, while now is ticking to almost 0 health. They've really dodged a few bullets, but once again, neck and neck between these two teams. There's only so much they could do. They're showing their single target prowess, and the rest of it is mechanically not exactly the most difficult fight in the world, just very unforgiving numerically, as long as those blobs are kept in check. But we have 2 rogues on either side, we have a Windwalker on either side, we have Ring of Peace, we have Typhoon, we have Ursul's. Plenty of opportunity for them to, oh, okay, that was really close. Plenty of opportunity for them to make sure the blobs don't reach the boss, but on Method and A side, that was so close. That Ring of Peace came down at the last second.
Yeah, you gotta be careful here. As you can see, Method, you're actually struggling a little bit. Mirror's actually going down here to one of the ticks from the Spit Gold. They were falling behind with the debuff. Xaylia almost died as well earlier to his own debuff. And now Xaylia has to be careful to be able to heal himself here. Maybe they were running out of defenses, but something definitely happened, as maybe that's maybe the damage that Xaylia has been doing just kind of made sure that he had last hots on the people, or maybe he was wasting some of the defensives to make sure that he can do more damage. And now he's got another Spit Gold. Hopefully he does have something left for him to be able to survive this debuff. But yeah, you could see in the damage meters that Xaylia was doing a lot more damage than JB, but that's not going to matter if you let one of your players die.
Yeah, I mean, he's just being a little overzealous right now, and just too much damage output, and it started to cost him. You know, the entire season, the entire tournament, he always likes to tread this fine line of just barely enough healing on the group. I trust the rest of my group. I'm going to output as much damage as possible, and they got caught here, and it did not work out for them. Either that, or there was a shark in the gold there, and it came out of the water and killed Mears. But nonetheless, Mears did go down, and they'd managed to battle res him 5.5 minutes until their next battle res is available, into a rather daunting gauntlet coming up after this. Golden Serpent 1% here, as Nerf Clap unfortunately procs this cheat death trinket right at the end of the encounter. That's not what you want to see right before the gauntlet.
Yeah, it definitely might have been a shark, but we see both Method and A and Method you heal the boss at the very same time here. So damage-wise, they are at the same level. The problem is, of course, the one death will mean that the 5 seconds difference between those two teams might matter in the end. We see both Xaylia and JB are not close to the Ray frames right now. They're not close to their team, and that's because they are pulling the 2 constructs in front of the first boss room to be sure that their team can damage them while this gauntlet here is going on, because there's a little bit of downtime in between the trash. So killing the constructs is very efficient here.
Very efficient indeed. Nerf Clap really has to bunker up and play fairly defensively here while his healer's missing. They make sure to get out of that frontal right now. Shakib pre-pops his cloak to be able to stay in there and DPS King Akul as much as possible, and they do bring them outside the room to make sure as much as they can that the Sanguine is left outside the room, so that they have as much area to kite and move around in once they inevitably proc their second Reaping and the rest of this gauntlet right here. Method, are you getting ready for the Triple King encounter?
Yeah, Sanguine management is just so important in this dungeon, especially because in this area here, there's really not that much room to kite, as you mentioned. So, and while having all these Guardians as well that have such a huge area of denial effect with this frontal cone, you just want to make sure that you have enough space as possible. And you do not want to drop the Sanguine in this like middle hallway at the door, as you see for Method and A, because if they walk back into the room, they're going to walk over the Sanguine. So it's very bad placement for the Sanguine. They have to wait until it disappears before they go back into the area. Right now, they have to stay in this hallway, and Nerf Clap does not have his Blum's Bargain available, and this Guardian is standing in the Sanguine. He's casting, so he's healing up a bunch.
Oh my
this just cost him so much time.
That is a huge misplay there. They used the bump from the ROP earlier, and then just let the Guardian bathe in that Sanguini Cristini for an extended period of time, and these Guardians have a ton of health already. Even though in this tyrannical environment, those are mini-boss style mobs. That's why you just often don't deal with them by themselves, and they usually survive through like halfway of this gauntlet or something. Just tons of health on those. Finally, they do manage to down them, so they lost just a bit of time here. Method EU already well working on their second round of Reaping, and on, of course, the King and Queen that have spawned on the side. So they're probably about 25% or so at this point in the gauntlet, but they do have still the extra death on the board.
Yeah, definitely. And then one thing to note here, when you pull the Queen and the King, you want to make sure that you're not wasting your damage on the Reaping, because the faster you kill the King and the Queen, the faster you're going to be get to the next trash bag here. So because if you don't kill off the King and the Queen, the next trash bag is not going to be active at all. And we've seen Abracadabra catch up a lot to Team D in the last run, because Team D was wasting way too much time dealing with the Reaping here. So Method U is slightly faster. They're going to be able to get the last trash bag activated a little bit earlier than Method and A here.
Yeah, Method EU 48% right now, working on Queen Patla, the final of this gauntlet area, and they'll be able to go right down to the construct, which of course they will be skipping at that point. Method NA following suit, keeping about the same percentage difference between the mobs that we saw in the previous part of the gauntlet right now. After this, I expect to see pretty much the same thing coming out of both teams. They're going to obviously stealth past the construct on the bridge and mass pull the room full of ooey gooey rich and chewies on top of the two constructs, and make sure to kite the constructs appropriately, not only out of the Sanguine but near the tombs. The real question will come after that. This kind of coveted skip that Method EU has talked to us about, where they will skip the 4th Reaping. That might be what they need to really get ahead of Method NA, but we'll have to wait for that, because first they have to deal not only with this room but Machimba as well.
Yeah, so we see, as you mentioned, the Shroud just come out, making sure they go past this construct just because it's so inefficient to kill, and it's way too dangerous to pull on top of the next room here just because of the beam that this construct is doing, which can't really be line of sighted or out range because it has a huge range. And now we see both Method EU and NA just gather these mobs together, and probably also going to pull the constructs on either side. Now they just have to be careful that they don't engage the constructs at the same time, because else if you do that, then they will overlap their Entomb cast, and then you won't be able to get a player out for a pretty long time.
Yeah, for a pretty long time. Yeah, there's kind of like an internal cooldown essentially on activating or triggering the tomb on the side should two players get put in the same one, or until you can click it again should a second player get put in even just a second later. So they're doing well to desynchronize them here as they kill off the GUIs quite perfectly, making sure that all of the Sanguine is localized in one corner. They don't pull Machimba, who has a fairly large aggro radius here, and they're now just bouncing between these two constructs. Method EU doing the exact same things, but it looks like they actually mismanaged some of their GUI kills with the fluids on the side, and they're at about 50 to 60% health right now, so they still have to cleave those plus the two constructs down.
Yeah, and they have to be careful here because they have to kill off both of those constructs at the very same time, because if you kill one too early, then that one will already proc your 6% Reaping Wave. So Method EU actually did it wrong. They're still in combat with some of those fluids here. So Zella did not manage to get out of combat, but he's still healthy on mana. The only issue is going to be that they didn't get a pot off out of combat, so it's going to cost them a little bit of damage. Either they shadow melt or they manage to get a pot off, else they're just going to have to use one in combat, meaning they're going to lose a little bit of time. But Method NA definitely played this whole room a little bit cleaner as they killed everything at the exact same time, got the Reaping Wave, got out of combat, and got their pot off.
Played it a bit cleaner is an understatement. They actually played it perfectly. Everything done at the exact same time, and they pulled the 3rd round of Reaping into Machimba here. Something that Method EU, you could see it, they hesitated. They're like, well, we usually spawn the 3rd Reaping here. Do we just, it's spawned now. Do we pull it into the boss? But the problem is they had those GUIs left over, so it was actually quite dangerous. If those died under Machimba by accident, with Machimba having so many casts as he does, with the fire denial on the ground, the drain fluid on a random target that needs to be healed above 90%, that could have healed the boss up quite a bit, who was already behind by 12% versus Method NA right now. So Method NA looking really good in this dungeon. A lot of pressure is going to be placed on what Method EU does next with that 80% skip.
Yeah, definitely. This 80% skip that they've been talking to us about has to be the one thing that puts them back into this dungeon, because if it's not going to save them a lot of time, then Method NA is ahead at this point. And if they get the second win here as well, then it's going to give them so much momentum. It is a best of 5 series, right? So they have to win 3 and not just 2 games. But if you're 2-0 behind, it's just going to cause so much trouble with your mentality too, because you have to win 3 games in a row. So Method EU definitely has to shape up if they want to win this second game here on King's Rest.
Yeah, that's a huge amount of work you have to do for a reverse sweep in a best of 5. So hopefully for them it doesn't come to that, but I'm sure Method NA would love nothing more than just to finish this nice and quickly and stick it right back to Method EU after all the difficulties they've given them during the cup play. Machimba the Embalmer running over for Method EU on the very, very far side, as now leaps over to the completely opposite side to get Jinji, who has unfortunately been trapped in that tomb. Finally gets a breath of fresh air, and they re-engage on Machimba. So a bit of damage lost there, unfortunately, because they had spent so much time not only getting Jinji out of that tomb, but the boss was on the completely opposite side, so they had to wait for him to travel back, which allowed Method NA to sneak 1 or 2% extra above Method EU here. And of course, they will be finishing the boss off very soon.
Yeah, and both of the teams chose to not use their Bloodlust here, so they will have it available for the trash later on, which we've seen most of the teams use for the next trash pull, because it's such a dangerous pull. You pull 2 groups on top of each other. You have Devil Berserker, you have a bunch of casters, and you have Raptors jumping around. So you definitely want to be careful with this pull that we're going to see soon from Method NA. And they also want to make sure to deal with the Sanguine properly, because we have seen Berserkers heal, we have seen Raptors jump into Sanguine before from Abracadabra side. So let's see what what they're doing here.
Let's see indeed in a moment here as Method and A gets ready. Nerf Clap wants to split these two mobs perfectly with a Hex Priest and reflect their bolts right back in their faces. Goes right down the center, grabs both Berserkers, grabs the two Raptors on the side. We do have the Paralyze go off from Lighty, making sure that Beastmaster in the back does not follow the group and get any of that Poison Nova on the group, or of course any of the punt. Inside, we have the Ursul's Vortex as the mobs stay in there, making sure that the Berserkers don't leap out right now. Nerf Clap gets his first stack of bleed for the Berserker, and here comes that shield wall nice and early as JB gets one of the Frost Shocks from the Witch Stalker right now. They start backpedaling the group out to make sure that they're out of Sanguine, and this is looking really good here, Nagura.
Yeah, definitely. Method doing such a good job. I don't think any of the mobs even healed at all from the Sanguine. They also, instead of killing the healing totem, they made sure it spawned further away, and then they just dragged the mobs away, so they didn't have to waste any time killing that healing totem. And now they're on to the Beastmaster plus the Brood. Once these two mobs die, they will proc their 80% Reaping Wave. And what the plan is going to be for Method EU is they want to kill off the Brood plus Beastmaster afterwards, and then they would just want to go to the Council Boss, run through all the way through the trash and Shadow Melt off the Reaping Wave there. Now we'll see what Method A does. Maybe they have the same idea, or maybe just play it the old way as they did in Cups.
We'll see exactly what they do here as they're at 77% trash on the board for both of these teams right now. Now making sure to point the Deadeye shot and have his back to the wall here. Brute and Beastmaster about to die at the exact same time here for Method and A. We'll see what they decide to do with it. Nerf Clap just charging right out of that, making sure he's not punted upwards. 83% on the board for Method and A as they start running towards the trash. I'm not sure if they're going to engage it or just run straight through. So it looks like they're doing a more traditional routing. They're engaging the next pack of 3 plus the Reaping that has spawned behind them for the 4th wave. So all eyes on Method EU right now as they're about to do the exact same thing. They're going to finish both of these mobs at the exact same time. No, they're not actually. The Beastmaster doesn't die right on time, but Method EU has finally finished it and indeed popped their speed potions and is looking to just get past this trash as quickly as possible and then Shadow Meld at the boss.
Yeah, so now we can really see if this strategy is really going to pay off for Method U, because they were behind right before this whole new strategy thing happened. So now their strategy is split up for Method A, Method U, and now we'll see at the end if this is actually going to pay off, because they need to make up a couple of seconds, not only from being behind in general, but also because of the 5 seconds from the one death they had on the first boss.
You know, that's actually exactly what we saw in the previous series. Abracadabra did the exact same strat that Method EU is doing. They did this entire skip and the 4th Reaping Wave skip, so I guess somebody has done it. Method EU said nobody's done it before, but Abracadabra beats him to the chase, while Team D in the previous series is doing exactly what Method and A did. So we're having a really mirror situation between these two teams in King's Rest with two different strats post 80% Reaping Wave. Kula the Butcher here at 58% now for Method EU as they chew through the first of these 3 bosses. Now the difference with Abracadabra is they also kind of engaged those 2 Berserkers one at a time, which was very dangerous, but they managed to pull it off. Method EU not doing that, playing it a lot cleaner, while Method and A finishing off the last Witch Doctor. 96% trash on the board. The remaining 4%, of course, will come from the Shadow of Zul. This is the rest of the trash that they're skipping and will not deal with for the rest of the dungeon.
Yeah, so Method U did get their first actually on Azalea, which does do a lot of damage to Severing Axe. It's also a very long debuff. It lasts for 20 seconds. Now, the Dwarves in their team, which are the Rogues, can actually get rid of this debuff with their Racial. Unfortunately, Sally is getting the 3rd debuff as well. So hopefully he does have some defensives left, because if you don't have any defensive, this debuff might be very deadly. You can see him just drop very low. And he also needs to make sure to run around and not get hit by those whirling axes. And of course, while you're running around, you can't really heal that much, even if you are a Resto Druid. So, but he just barely managed to survive there.
And he's literally countering every take of the Sever Axe with a regrowth spam cast. Like, he's just sitting there, just tanking heals on himself. And we know he hates to do that because he wants to be in there getting as much damage on the boss as possible. Method and A now 44% on Kula the Butcher, has already completed all of the trash that they need to for the dungeon, except for, of course, the last Shadow of Zul mob right before King Dazar. So we'll have to see just how they handle that, but likely they'll just kill it and Shadow Meld the 5th wave off, as we see most teams do. 33% now for Kula, as Method E has already started on the 2nd boss in this council encounter, Zanazal the Wise.
Yeah, Zanazal also doesn't have that many mechanics. You only want to make sure that you deal with the totems properly. The only very dangerous totem is the explosive totem. It works the same way as explosive the affix. You want to make sure you kill it fast enough before the cast goes through. Else it does a huge amount of AoE damage to your team, but it shouldn't be a problem at all for those teams. And the other 2 totems don't really do that much if you have a full melee team, so they just kind of ignoring it. As you can see, the Thunder totem just being there in the right corner, just kind of being ignored. And then the last boss, Akali, also is not a huge deal, as it's really just a barrel through that can be avoided by a bunch of mechanics like Shadow Melt and Vanish, and then you have the backhand as well.
Spellflood coming in from Nerf Clap there as Zenazal the Wise spawns for Method and A. Want to make sure to reflect that Lightning Bolt every 25 seconds, but every 25 seconds as often as possible, just to maximize damage on the boss. Here comes once again Kula the Butcher in the middle of the room. The bosses will cast their signature abilities coming back once they die, so it makes the encounter kind of get harder and harder and snowballs in difficulty to the very end. Method EU here finally downing the second boss, Zenazal the Wise, and using this downtime before Aka Ali spawns to kill the remaining totems and clear out the battlefield so that they have an easy time. But they left one in the corner, the Thundering Totem.
Yeah, so one thing to notice that Method U actually got the second set of totems before they managed to kill off Zenazal. Now, if Method A manages to kill her before the second set of totems spawns, then he actually just gained a bunch of seconds, because there's one totem, the Earth Totem, that immediately puts a buff on the boss, absorbing damage. So you either have to finish up the totem to get rid of it, or you have to dispel it. But because there's no offensive dispel in either of these groups available to them, you just lose a bunch of damage if you get the second set of totems.
And they did manage to beat it by the looks of it. Method A down Zenazal, so a bit more advantage towards Method A right now. Has had an absolutely flawless run so far. 0 deaths on the board, about to have their third battle res come up should they even need it. Aka Ali, of course, now has been aggroed. We know the story behind this boss. Barrel through will target one of the members. Everybody that soaks the charge in that path splits some of the damage, else the target will get one shot. But you can vanish or shadow meld, what have you, the cast of Barrel Through right before it goes off, causing the boss to recast this very long cast time on someone else, which buys the time for the tank in turn to not get hit by debilitating backhand as often, and you just get so much extra DPS uptime on that. Method EU here no stranger to that, as they get in the single digits of % on Aka Ali.
Yeah, Method U is about to down the boss here, but again, they did this whole 80% Reaping Wave skip, so they still have to deal with some of the trash mobs, while Method A only has to do the mini boss, and then they can go to the last boss. So Method U is going to need a little bit of time to finish off this trash here, and again, Abracadabra just kind of had both of the Berserkers dealt with while they were fighting the boss, so they will have to deal with more trash mobs than we've seen Abracadabra deal with before. So we'll see how they do, and Abracadabra was struggling a lot with the Sanguine management, so let's see if Method U can do it a little bit better.
Yeah, Method U, I mean, this is a really dangerous pull here, and keep in mind that there's a pack on either side of them that they have not aggroed. They skipped the triple pull with the not only the Berserker, but the Witch Doctor and the Hex Priest as well right behind them. We saw Elsrad unfortunately get punted into that earlier, and he died instead of aggroing them. Now has 2 stacks of the bleed right now. Gingy Prox's Cheat Death is here as well. Things are getting a bit too spicy. He now actually has 3 stacks of the bleed. There's no way he can drop that. He's not a dwarf right now, and he has his shield wall popped. Finally manages to get spam healed, but unfortunately Prox's Cheat Death trinket that has literally saved his life on the last tick of the bleeds, and they try to finish up the rest of the trash, but Fragnan says 2 stacks as well. Prox's Cheat Death is going to be so much damage to heal through. He goes down, and Mears gets a Frost Shock from the Witch Doctor as well. Finally, the healing totem comes up from the said Witch Doctor, and they get the battle res up on Fragnan as they try to chisel down the rest of this group. So much damage coming in, though, as now just starts chunking again with bleeds all over the place, and there's area denial from the Raptor on the bridge as well.
No, they have to. There's some mobs in the back that they succeed earlier. They had blinds and saps on some of the mobs here. You can see the Berserkers and the Headhunters coming in.
Oh boy.
They were supposed to succeed, and now since it's taking them so long, the succeed broke in the back, and the mobs are just coming in, and now there's going to be even more mechanics to deal with for them. This is such a disaster pull for them. This is taking them way too long. You see now dropping very low. He's dying. Now actually goes down. They do have a battle rest available to them, but now everyone else is aggro, and this might just cause them to have a full team wipe, as there's Sanguine everywhere. You see one C actually coming out, so they only have the Raptor to deal with, and then they need to Shadow Mount to de-aggro everything, but this was disastrous for them.
Yeah, the disastrous. They finally managed to kill everything, but because now died, a lot of the bleeds from the Berserkers went on Fragrance, who had procced his Cheat Death earlier and needed to get res. He goes down again. Fortunately, they managed to drop aggro. There is a paralyzed mob in the back, but I don't think they're in combat with it anymore because they got the Master Res off on Fragrance. So finally, they managed to get out of that. Everything's sunshine and daisies here for Method and A, as by textbook example, have killed the Shadow of Zul, finished their 100%. We do know that it is an on-screen issue with the UI. They have indeed finished their 100% confirmed on Shadow of Zul, skipped the 5th Reaping Wave, and started on Dazar with 0 deaths on the board. Method and you now 40% on Shadow of Zul. Fragment's chunking down. Everybody's chunking down right now as Zayla struggles to heal the group.
Yeah, Method and A just having such a clean run compared to Method U. This is really not characteristic at all for Method EU. They usually see the other way around, right? But Method EU having this new strategy where they skip the 80% reaping wave, they go backwards and just do this slight change to their strategy that they were making is causing them so many issues. Maybe they didn't practice it enough. Maybe they figured we're going to play King's Dress only one time. Maybe we just only do it a couple of times, but it's not working out for them at all as they're just pulling the boss right now. So they're very far behind to Method NA. Method NA is going to get their Bloodlust up very, very soon in a couple of seconds, and they will use it once the boss gets to 60%, and then there's not much between them and winning the second game, and it's going to be 2-0. And they also still have 3 battle rests, so in case something goes wrong, as long as JV doesn't die, they can just get them back up too.
Yeah, I mean, this game is pretty much done at this point. Outside of a full wipe, they have 3 battle reses. Method EU has 5 deaths on the board, so the only way Method NA is losing this is via full wipe right now. The hardest part of the encounter is coming up right now as King Dazar is about to mount the second Raptor on the side, which redirects all damage to Tsala there, as you can see, but immediately Bloodlust and cooldowns are popped to make sure that they get through this phase as quickly as possible. The mount does, of course, AoE fear the group every 10 to 12 seconds. We can have the warrior tanks get out of it the first time with the Berserker's Rage, but after that, they will succumb to the fear. So Raban going down rapidly too. Not too much of a concern for the group as much as Tsala, which is now sub 10%, and they're about to finish it off. Unfortunately, the last Deathly Roar does get off, but it's nowhere near any of the tornadoes. So a bit of a bullet dodge there for Method NA as they've gone through the hardest phase in the encounter and are looking to start the third phase here.
Yeah, Method NA doing such a good job here in this King's Rest in general, just having 0 death, such a good run by them. They're very fast as well if you look at their final time, doing such a good job, also avoiding all of those tornadoes. Well, on the other side, if you look at Method EU, you see a debuff on Jinji, you see a debuff on Maris. They're just really out of their game right now, as Maris might even die while he's feared and having this debuff doing such a huge amount of damage to him, also having both of those, both of the Raptors up at the very same time. And on Method EU side, they don't have a battle rest, so if anyone goes down, they're in trouble. But Method NA, again, just if you look at the boss percentage, it is a tyrannical setting, and this boss does have a lot of HP, so the 20% HP difference between those 2 teams means a lot.
Means quite a lot, and I mean, it's not even that. There's just so many factors opposed to Method EU right now. It looks like Method NA will be taking this here momentarily. They still have a few percent to shoot through for King Dazar, but I mean, you know, Gura, this strat, and I'm sure we'll talk about it at the desk, this strat that both Abracadabra tried and Method EU tried, it's just not a good strat. It just doesn't work out. That pull is too hard for both teams. They've shown it. It blew up in their face, and it really cost them the match on both sides, quite frankly. So, nonetheless, Method NA now here, sub 10%, and they're looking to close out the second game, and they're going to be momentarily, I want to see the cheers from them in just a moment here as the lights come on, but they're momentarily going to be 1 game away. Here it comes. There it is. They're going to be 1 game away from claiming a 3-0 sweep against the indestructible Method EU and taking first place in the spring season here. 1 game away, Jack.
1 game away, Salute, as the Method NA does end up taking King's Rest. And it doesn't seem like Method EU is fully on their game or something like that. They just keep having these critical error sours going into each of their matchups thus far. Before they played each other, they were 10-2 in games. Now at this point, they're down 2 games. They're now going to be 10-4. Quite a mighty set of losses coming up against Method EU right now, Sours.
Oh, yeah. Method EU has never been in a position like this before. 1 game away from defeat in something that they shouldn't be in the spot. They told us that they didn't fly 30 hours to not win everything. However, it looks like it could be the case this time. However, Method NA played this entire dungeon perfectly. While they did have a couple of hiccups in the earlier maps as well as series, this tournament wasn't any issues for them at all. Method EU had a kind of a cheeky strat with the speed potion sprint all the way to the council boss, where then you shadow melt off all the trash and just give a little bit of the reaping. But that didn't end up mattering for them because they still have to go back and kill that trash, and so does Method NA, right? And they were able to kill it and even finish the dungeon before them because of some mistakes that Method EU had on that bridge.
Quite a few mistakes. And so you were mentioning before, the pull on the bridge continue. We've seen so many teams doing it or some rendition of it. It's so aggressive, and so many times it's just not working out.
I mean, this strat for me is a big yikes. I'm just, you know what? That's actually a crikes for me. Like, it's not working for the teams right now. Both of these teams tried to do it. I understand the beauty in it. I understand the technicalities of it. You skip the 4th reaping. It should, in theory, on paper. We always talk about the on paper versus in practice. On paper, it should work. It sounds great. But what happens, both of these teams, they just scuffed it because it takes way too long with the aggressive aggressive pull that they do, and they have a very short window of when they need to kill the mobs. Nagura, you and I saw, they had the double sap and double blinds on the side. It just took way too long. Everything was disastrous. It's a small space, sanguine all over the place. The mobs eventually broke out, and then everything just went sour on both teams. We saw it from two different teams, the exact same strat. It didn't work, and it cost them the game.
It did go sour indeed. And let's take a little bit closer look on that last game there, Sours.
Oh yeah, so this bridge is so dangerous. These mobs are really scary, and you see just how low everyone's going and getting chunked. There's so much damage, and of course when you're doing these pulls, right, off way in the back there's a mob blinded as well as paralyzed, right, and those only last for a minute, and these mobs take so long to kill that they end up having those break out of CC. You see them coming now from the right side of the screen in just a second. There's the dead rogue running back, and soon the rest of the mobs will follow suit. This is too much damage for them to follow, even though these are some of the easiest Avexes we've ever had in King's Rest. With the Volcanic in here, nothing's really going to be doing like that much damage to them, but the trash mobs are ultimately what's doing all the damage to them. And it's just so hard for them to kind of recover that pull, and as a result, you know, they just end up bleeding one member down at a time. The casts from that group are dangerous. The Raptor's dangerous. The Beastmaster's dangerous. And if they get too greedy, they think they've got the cool strategy, and then their cool strategy that they haven't used at all until this tournament ends up backfiring on them, and it makes them lose the match.
I think it was interesting as we've kind of looked at both teams. We've seen so much of Method going through these tournaments, especially in the Western regions, and their dominance throughout. Method NA was even talking about how you have to make these strategies even more aggressive, even more risky to be able to win up against them. And it seems like kind of the first time we're consistently kind of seeing some failures out of EU, Nagura.
To be fair, I think we've actually seen Method U fail before, especially against Method NA. But whenever Method NA was doing really well against Method U, then they just kind of struggled at the very end of their dungeon, and they just had a huge mistake, had a huge wipe coming in, or we saw maybe JB dying at the end, and that's why they lost. And then this time around, they just have a clean run. They have their headspace. They just playing perfectly, have zero deaths. They're playing their strategy cleanly. And if Method U does make a mistake, which they have done before, but this time they're actually benefiting off of it, and they're playing their run perfectly and winning if Method U makes those mistakes, as we've seen them do before. So they just have to continue to do these clean runs and just stay motivated, and then they can win the whole thing.
They'll have to stay motivated. They'll have to keep calm, cool, and collected as we're moving on into Game 3 here in Shrine of the Storm, where Method NA could be sealing the deal and finishing the sweep.
Here we go, Method NA versus Method EU. It could be the final match of this grand final here, but we do know how well Method EU's performed this dungeon. They've done it this tournament already, so if there's any map they could turn it around on, it's this one. Nerfclap already taking a huge chunk of damage and has already procced his Cheat Death Trinket right off the bat. We're not even 30 seconds into the dungeon, so that's going to sting for later because there's going to be a lot of tank damage coming in, bursting stacks going left and right on both groups right now, but they do manage to stabilize as both tanks start kiting up the stairs. Shield all about to fade off now on the Method EU side, and kind of turning it more defensively. He goes up the stairs, making sure that none of those casts reach him.
Yeah, so we actually saw both of those teams play against each other in Shrine before. Now, Method NA had a huge wipe on the Tentacles later on, and that's why they lost, while Method EU had a clean run. But today, everything is looking like things are turned around. It's looking like Method NA is a super clean team, while Method EU is making all those mistakes. And you can see Cheat Death rocking from Gingy, and Frank's just going down, as I was saying. They're just having those small mistakes here and there, just the rogues dying, proccing their Cheat Deaths, and the pull is still not over. There's still things that can go wrong here.
And Gingy goes down as well. This is an absolute mess. Now goes down as well. It looks like it's going to be a full team wipe right now. Zayla is already running up the bridge. He's likely going to Shadow Melt to try and get the res off, even though they have the checkpoint at the beginning of the dungeon. But just to save the extra 5 seconds, the rest of the team has released, and Method EU already starting on the back foot here, while Method NA's only downside here was the Cheat Death proc trinket from Nerfclap right now, the Bonsamdi's bargain, but they have managed to stabilize and come right down, getting ready to proc their first round of Reaping and drag it into the most infamously well-designed boss Acusir that I, of course, had to hand it in this dungeon.
Yeah, this is such a huge disaster for Method NA. Just things are not working out for them at all right now, as Method NA procced it 20% Reaping Wave already. They did Shadow Melt off as many Reaping mobs as they could, and now they're engaging the boss, which is not the best boss I've ever seen, by the way. It's kind of like meh. And Method NA is fighting the mobs at the same time with the boss, and now we've seen things go wrong here a lot. We've seen a rogue die to the bindings here from the caster. We've seen just cast go off in general. So we'll see how Method A is doing here.
I mean, I'd hate this boss too if I constantly got punted off the platform, Nagura, but accuracy are now at 85% for Method and A's. Method EU still struggling with that first pack. Now already chunked actually quite low on health again, but did manage to stabilize. He's trying to line of sight a lot of these casters here at the bottom as the last of the Spiritualists kind of congregates at the bottom. Actually, there might be 1 or 2 alive still, but this is just hugely sloppy for Method EU right now. It's already set them so far back in the dungeon, and Method and A already looking to have a nice, clean run. Exact same strategy, at least so far, based on what we saw the other day. But there's a couple of points in this dungeon, especially all the way up to Lord Stormsong, Nagura, that if you wipe at any point, especially the later you go, and especially after the skip with the Guardian Elemental on the bridge, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, definitely. And we've seen the differences between those two strategies from those teams the last time around. And it really looks like Method A has not adjusted their strategy, even though it seemed like they were slightly slower than Method EU the last time around. But of course, because of their huge wipe they had the last time they played against each other, we don't really know who had the better strategy or the faster one. So Method and A this time around, they just want to play cleanly. They just don't want to make the same mistake again and have this full team wipe going in, because again, Shrine is just one of those dungeons you always spawn at the entrance unless you're at the very, very last end bit of the dungeon. And if you spawn at the entrance and you've skipped all of those reaping waves, shadow melted them off, then you will have to deal with them again and you have to re-kill all of those waves. There's an insane amount of time that you lose if you have a full team wipe coming in.
Yeah, no, absolutely it is. And just so many things can go wrong after this. JB's already run downstairs while Method and A's cleaning up the rest of the transition phase with the Aqualings just to pull the 4 initiates at the bottom, surrounding Heldis, the mini-boss that they, of course, will be skipping after this boss keels over and dies. They also just want to get rid of these 4 bursting stacks early when there's not really too much happening after the transition phase. Method EU still dancing around at the top, or on the stairs where they first started the dungeon, and finally has procced their first reaping and popped their speed potions as well, running down to Lord Stormsong's area and shadow melding that first reaping wave off. Not Lord Stormsong, excuse me, Acuseer's area.
Don't even remember your own boss's name. So Method EU, so the difference in the strategy from Method EU to Method A here at the very first bit is that Method EU is actually doing 2 pulls upstairs before they go down and engaging this trash group here with the boss. So in the end, they will have a little bit more percentage, and that means that this pull that Method A is doing right now is a little bit bigger than the one that Method EU is doing later. So they can save a little bit of time later after this boss fight, and Method A has to deal with all of this trash. But the last time, it worked just fine for Method A. I mean, it took them a little bit longer, but they didn't really have any problems finishing this trash off. Now, one thing to note as well, of course, that it is bursting, and there's a couple of mobs that don't have a lot of HP, so you definitely want to be careful with your damage management, as Yoda actually procs his cheat death.
Yeah, damage management. This is a very tight hallway here. Water blasts are hugely dangerous to the tank right now. And not just that, but the Iron Hull apprentices actually have a huge air denial. You can see right there, they did manage to AoE stun them. That just hits for so much damage. And of course, you have Tempest cast going off left and right. You have a limited amount of interrupts that you could do on these mobs, and you have to pick your battles, not to mention wash away small blue swirlies on the ground that punt you away from their center and deal a bunch of damage too. So we had Yoda get clipped there, unfortunately, and proc his cheat death. Won't have that available again for 6 minutes. And not that there's necessarily too much incoming damage on the rest of the party. I mean, there are things you can avoid later on. It's just the sheer presence of bursting that you want to have the safety net on all of these tunes. You want to have those cheat deaths present on the rogues in case things get out of hand. It's just a nice comfort to have, and Yoda's not going to have that for a while now. Here comes the infamous bridge skip right now, along with the second round of reaping. Nerf Clap grabs everything, and they run off to the side and immediately shadow meld perfectly, getting rid of mostly everything, but we do know some of those Risen Souls sometimes leak in, Nagura.
Yeah, well done by Method and A. Only got like 1 or 2 Risen Souls here back then, which is not going to be a problem at all. Now the Trinket is coming back up for nerf, which is really good because this trash pool here is very dangerous. A lot of tank damage. You have a lot of casters here coming through with the water blast, as you can see them cast in the corner, and then you have a lot of tornadoes as well with tempests that you need to dodge, and of course you have the bursting when you kill them off. So you want to be careful here, as you see JB interrupting one of these whirling slams. Now of course the whirling slams can be interrupted, or you can just walk out and dodge them, but if you interrupt them and it doesn't go through, then your melee can just keep doing damage, and just so much more efficient to interrupt it as long as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen some cheeky play here with the bursting coming up towards the second boss, where they actually skip most of these initiates and then backtrack and pull them during the boss using the rune from Brother Ironhull that decreases damage taken by 70% while standing in it. And that's really the key to getting anywhere between 12 and 16 stacks of bursting, something that you obviously can't level unless you have heavy DR or some form of immunity. So here they go again, just like we saw the other day, straight into the boss encounter. They pull 8 of the initiates. They'll get an 8th round of bursting stack here early on the boss with all their cooldowns active, and afterwards they'll pull another 12 to 16 of them.
Yeah, on the other side, we see Mythic finally down the first boss, but they're so far behind. They do have a little bit less trash to kill here, as I mentioned earlier, because they have the 36% trash in comparison to the 28, I believe, that Mythic had. So they have a little bit less trash to kill and a little bit less time to catch up to Mythic, but still, the huge wipe that they had cost them so much time on top of the 4 deaths, which is a 20 seconds difference as well. While Mythic is already fighting Guild Caller Faye here, which can be difficult of a boss fight, but we see those teams usually just not interrupt the Tempest cast to make sure there's no tornadoes spawning throughout the room. It makes it so much more difficult for those teams with a full melee setup to do this boss if there's a bunch of tornadoes just going around in the room.
Yeah, there's a bit of a miscommunication there as well. They didn't interrupt a couple of the slicing blasts, as you mentioned earlier, to not get too many stacks, but then they used the rune to clean the stack off, as you can see, all of them on Mythic side. We'll head in there. JB unfortunately gets hit by the frontal, though, from Brother Ironheart. Last thing you need to see. Fortunately, does not die, but what happened is the bosses themselves also gained a 70% damage reduction while standing in that rune, so they kind of just let Gale Caller Face sit in there and do nothing for a while and lost a fair bit of damage on us. So a bit of a slip up from them as the 4th stack comes in. They want to make sure to interrupt the 5th, otherwise that would one-shot them and does increase your damage taken from all nature sources per stack with that debuff. Mythic has done their skip perfectly across the bridge and is dealing with a lot of the trash in front of these 2 bosses that Mythic is on their way to downing at this point.
I really like that they pulled the Enforcer already. You can see there's an Enforcer that patrols around in the trash right after this boss, and it can only be pulled at a very specific time when it's in between 2 trash packs patrolling right there, because if you pull it while it's too close to another trash pack, that one will just social aggro. So the last time when Method U played against Method NA, their Enforcer got pulled really late because they probably didn't have the timing right. Oh, they have 11 stacks. I hope Nerfclub is fine as he jumps into this zone. It's very late. Yoda just going down. They do have a Battle Rest available to get him back up though, but Nerfclub just almost going down as well here as he jumped into the zone at the very last millisecond.
Yeah, but I mean, that zone on Sabi, it's still only a 70% damage reduction against like 12 bursting stacks, and they kind of they refreshed their bursting a bit too late. They mistimed the rune versus the bursting death versus when to get in. So what happened is not only did Yoda go down, but then Shakib procced his cheat death as well. So a bit of sloppiness out of Method and A here, and they did have to commit their battle res, which they will have another one available up in about 10 seconds here. So they'll have a bit of safety net later on. Method has wasted no time and has gone right up to the same boss here. 54% trash on the board for them. We do know they're going to make up some of that percentage throughout the boss fight as well, but they're still a fair bit behind, even with that small hiccup from Method and A.
Yeah, Method and A already procced the 60% Reaping Wave with their Enforcer that I've been mentioning earlier. This time around, they actually cleaned up their strategy a little bit and had the Enforcer be pulled in earlier, not wasting too much time once Brother Ironheart actually was dead. And now they Shadow Melted off the Reaping Wave plus the trash that they aggroed while walking through. And now this is the trash group. They actually died through the last time around. So we will see if they actually cleaned up their play this time, because if they have a full team wipe again, then it's going to cost them a couple of minutes to even come back to this point.
It's leaving you speechless what happens if they wipe again, because I don't even want to know. It's going to be quite disastrous. So hopefully for their sake that doesn't happen here again, as they do well to dodge the mental assaults. Now, trick here is that Nerf Clap needs to be in melee range of these Colossal Tentacles. Otherwise, they will start smacking not only the melee, but if no one's in range, and then they'll do a huge Hull Breaker cast that hits the group quite hard, especially in this fortified environment. A lot of damage coming in on Nerf Clap. There needs to be some form of interrupts on some of these Void Bolts going out, and especially the Rip Mine. The Rip Mine cast is hugely dangerous for the tank, and Nerf Clap just cannot get healed back above 40% health. JB doing what he can to focus him down and just get that healing up, and finally managed to do so as some of those drowning casts go out on the rogues, which is quite fortunate for them because they managed to cloak it off. But huge damage coming in on Nerf Clap. Finally managed to heal everything through, and the last few cultists are going down, but Nerf Clap has committed his cheat death trinket to that.
Lighty going down as he got hit by one ability, and we see the two bursting stacks on everybody. They do have one battle rest available to them to get him back up, but this insane crazy pull that they're doing, where they're pulling both of the bridge patrols on top of the tentacles. They only incapped one of the mobs. I do believe they don't actually need this mob, and then they're gonna Shadow Melt off the aggro of it and just deal with the tentacles. So this is actually a very nice strategy of Method and A if it works out, as we can see it working out right now. Last time around it did not work out, but this time they're doing it well done with only one death. So at this point they're out of battle resist, so they have to play perfectly from now on. But they're so far ahead. Method EU just now proc their 60% reaping wave. They are doing the same skip and are going to Shadow Melt off the aggro. But Method NA, they're on their way to the third boss here.
Yeah, they're on their way to the third boss, and I mean, it worked out for them, but certainly not perfectly. They had to commit their only battle res to that. They lost some damage on it from the form of Lighty, but again, I mean, anything's better than a full wipe at this point, because until they kill the next boss, Lord Stormsong, which they're about to do in just a moment, here comes the Shadow Meld right now. Sometimes you do have one of these Risen Souls snap to you on this fourth wave, but not a big deal, as Lord Stormsong finally does spawn and finish his RP. Once he's dead, this room will become the new checkpoint, so a wipe, although catastrophic, won't be nearly as catastrophic as starting all the way at the beginning of the dungeon. Method EU doing anything they can to catch up, and they've done an equally aggressive pull with all of the trash on the bridge, including the double tentacles.
I just heard Method NA cheer a little bit in the background because the first Ancient Mindbender actually went on a rogue when they had the cloak up, meaning that the whole Mindbender just gets removed and no one is getting mind controlled at all. So they won the RNG battle on the first Mindbender. Now, if the second one goes on JB, then they just won the whole lottery. Well, Method EU is still fighting the bridge trash here. They still have to deal with this whole trash pack, and then they can move on to the dwellers, and then they're moving on to the boss. Well, Method NA is already on 50%.
Yeah, Method EU certainly actually moving a bit slower on the bridge too. I do believe Method NA had the better strategy here. They pulled this trash on top of the tentacles. Method EU pulled only one pack on top of the double tentacles, so most of the bridge, not quite all of it, but they're finishing that up right now, as Method NA is still at, is at 35% on Lord Stormsong, making sure that some of those Void Bolts are reflected by Nerf Clap as often as possible.
Oh, unfortunately, Lighty got hit by the Ancient Mindbender, so it is a damage dealer that has to go into those bubbles that damage him, because once he reaches 50% HP, then he will actually get freed from the Mindbender and he can continue to do damage. But again, just a 45 setting, so the boss really is not going to be a big deal at all, and the HP, of course, is a lot lower than on a tyrannical setting as well. But it's the last boss room that's going to be very interesting to see, because not only do they need a lot of damage to make sure they don't get a second phase on the boss, but it's also very important that JB does no mistakes whatsoever, because he's going to have the debuff on him that not only increases his damage done, but it also decreases. Oh my god, we see a cheat death from Yoda because he jumped into water too early.
The Method EU did that exact same thing the other day. They're just a bit too overzealous and they jump in too early, so much damage coming in. So no cheat death available again for him for the rest of the dungeon now, pretty much. And also they don't have the cheat death available because of the sloppy play. So if anybody dies, they're not going to be able to be rezzed on this next encounter. And we have certainly seen some people flop over on the final boss of the Shrine of the Storm here. Method EU still at 70% on Lord Stormsong. Still have the same 4 deaths that they had on the board from the beginning of the dungeon. Doing anything they can to catch up right now, but there's only so much you can do in the single target damage encounter. And from here on out, there's really no creativity in terms of strats. It's all been pretty laid out. At some point, you're going to pull 1 to 2 pack of eels. You're going to kill the rest of the trash in front of the boss using the boss's buff during transition. And then you're going to lust and finish off the boss all in one go, and then the eels after that. So anything short of a wipe should actually see Method NA with a 3-0 victory.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that they're actually pulling the eels on top of the boss. This is very dangerous because you can see Nerf Club having so many bleed stacks on top of it, which is magic damage. So Proud Warriors are known to be very tanky against physical damage, maybe not that much against magic damage. So very well done by them. Now, one thing to note that these eels don't actually proc bursting, so they don't have to worry about that affix. But they did manage to finish them off. Now, unfortunately, Method NA does not know that they're this far ahead at this point, so they can't really play safer. They're just going to continue to do their strategy, even if it's risky. And again, they don't have any cheat deaths available. They don't have battle rests available. So if anything goes wrong here, it's a full team wipe, and Method EU can still catch up. So right now they're in the transition phase, and they are dealing with the different denizens.
Yeah, we can see JB, of course, at 9 stacks of that buff, getting as much damage as he can out. And after this, they will deal with the trash version of the denizens right in front of the boss, and then commit that bloodlust to make sure that they one-phase the rest of the encounter. Method EU is downed, of course, Lord Stormsong, and is desperately swimming over to start this room themselves. But yeah, I mean, that eel pull we actually don't typically see from teams. That was a very aggressive pull. I'm glad it worked out for them, but it's very scary too, especially in a situation where you don't have any battle resist too. So very ballsy of them, but it worked out as they make sure to coordinate the 2 interrupts per Forgotten Denizen here so that the cast don't go out, not only dealing a substantial amount of shadow damage and definitely one-shotting JB. They're actually pulling the eels on top of these right now, so they're going as aggressive as possible, just wanting to cleave everything down and use JB's ability to do some extra damage here. Just make sure they don't miss the interrupts, but it looks like they're going to pull this off.
Yeah, they want to make sure that GB does not get aggro from any of those mobs because he does have the reduced HP. So as soon as he gets aggro, he might just get one-shot by one of those denizens. Now, one thing to note as well is that the bursting does do percentage HP damage. So he's not going to get one-shot by it or anything because, of course, his HP is reduced and he doesn't have like... his full HP is not reduced to 1 HP or something. He just has his max HP reduced. And now we see the Boralus being popped. Want to make sure that they face this boss right now before they get a second transition phase, because that's going to cost them so much time.
So much time here, but Volzith rapidly declining in health right now. They have just one Eel CC'd on the side, and Volzith sub 20%. Just burning him down as desperate as possible. JB doing as much damage as he can, wants to close this out, does not want to give any chance to Mythic EU to catch up right now, and they head over to the last deal. They're going to cleave them both down together, and Method NA are going to close this out with a 3-0 win in just a moment here over Method EU. They've done the impossible. They've downed the undefeatable team, and they've claimed victory for the spring season of the MDI in Sydney, Australia.
It didn't happen in Cup 1, 2, 3, but it happened on land. Method NA are our spring final champions here as they down Method EU, who has only ever lost one series, which was this one. A huge sigh of relief for Method NA, and huge breath of fresh air, huge cheer. These teams have been battling against each other for weeks. There's been hype about them for months, and Sours has got to be an incredible feeling for these guys.
Oh yeah, it is definitely a huge upset. However, it isn't necessarily that unexpected of an upset. Method NA has always had the potential to be the team to beat Method EU. It just took them playing perfectly, which they always struggle to do, and maybe Method EU making one or two mistakes. And that's just what happened here. Like, exactly what happened here, where Method NA played out of their minds for the first time ever in the entire tournament. They played perfectly in all of their dungeons, and Method EU was getting one mistake after another, and those are mistakes that you can't have, especially in the LAN finals when there's so much on the line.
Without a doubt, so much on the line, and we will be having Method NA be the #1 team from the finals here. Absolutely incredible, and just like the last couple games in the series here, Salute, it's just those small critical errors you just cannot make when Method NA is on fire.
I mean, it's funny. The entire season we kept saying you can't make these small mistakes against Method EU. They're going to get you. You know, you just one slip up, and that's all it takes against Method EU. And then they're the ones that did it this time, and that's all it took. It was complete role reversal here. Method NA playing almost perfectly in all the dungeons. Small slip ups. You know, you had a death at the end of the Siege of Boralus. You had a couple of spot deaths here in Shrine of the Storm. But I mean, it was a pretty colossal mistake from Method EU. Completely uncharacteristic. They almost had essentially a full team wipe at the start of the dungeon, and that just set them so far back.
So far back and so far behind that they were just not able to recover. Now let's take it on to Thist on stage with JV of Method NA.
Thank you, Jack. First of all, congratulations. That was amazing. We're so happy for you. So Method EU has lost 3 dungeons total this year leading up to the series. You just beat them 3 times in a row. How did you do this?
Look, first I want to say Method EU has consistently been the best team in this tournament and in every cup play. Maybe the best team that the World of Warcraft has ever seen in any competitive format. Like, these guys are top-notch players, you know, across the board. Fantastic leadership, super great guys to hang out with. I love them, and you know, unfortunately, one of us had to lose here. I got to say, I didn't see this turning out this way. But I guess it had to happen eventually that we beat them, so I'm glad it was now.
Okay, well, that's good. So you finally took them down, but it's been a long time coming. What makes Method EU such a worthy opponent?
God, everything. I mean, they have some of the brightest minds in Mythic Plus coming up with routes. You know, consistently. You know, you see Method EU come out of time trials with these blistering times, and you're going like, oh my god. You know, you're just imagining the crazy stuff they must be doing to get these times, and then you actually see them run it in the cup, and all the routes are, you know, there's nothing wild here. That's just very, you know, consistent, fast, you know, nothing too crazy, nothing, you know, that you're likely to wipe on, and you see it and you just go, I'm like, why? It's so simple, and why didn't I think of that? You know, like you see it and you go, I feel like I should have been able to come up with that. Why couldn't I come up with that? And then they've got guys that, you know, obviously, you know, these guys are pretty much either have been or are currently in, the top rating guild in the world. So, you've got guys that are going to execute. You're never going to take the same route they have and just beat them on it by raw execution. Those are guys that are fantastic players, great thinkers, a lot of fun to party with. And I intend to be doing that tonight with them.
Well, I mean, you've certainly been singing their praises, but how did it feel to get the win? Like, how do you feel right now?
It's a first. Beating Method EU, so I'm still processing. Like that's, I gotta say the guys on Method NA, they believed in this when I don't think a lot of other people did. And we know what we're capable of. We haven't routinely put it all together on stage. That's not always been, consistency has not necessarily been our strong suit. So, we'd seen, what we were capable of, but that's one of, another one of Method EU's strong points is just consistency. These guys don't make mistakes. You're never gonna, sometimes you can come in and play another team and just go like, hey, maybe they'll throw, maybe they'll just do something stupid and just give us the dungeon. Method EU does not do. That's kind of their calling card is they make you beat them. And I mean, these guys, they played amazing 3 dungeons in a row. That's some of the best dungeons we've done across the board on all those 3 dungeons. And they put it, they brought it together when they needed to and, beat the top dog of the tournament. So.
You certainly did. And you must be so proud of your team. Is there anything you'd like to say to congratulate them?
Yeah, I mean, those, I would go to war with those guys. Like, that's just like, I've spent more time with them than I have with anybody else, in the world over the last 3 months. Like, that's just, you just kind of become family. Like, you're in the dungeons all the time. You wake up, you jump into Discord with them. All right, let's get into this dungeon. You're eating meals together. You finally get, I'd met, Shaq and Lighty in a few of the previous events, but Yoda and Nerf were 2 guys that I was meeting for the first time. And so, we got these individual practice rooms in this tournament. So you're literally just, sitting in a room, 10, 12 hours a day with these guys, eating meals together. And at a certain point, it kind of transcends the video game. And so, I just love them to death.
Oh, that's so great. So we're feeling a lot of love up here on the stage. How's the desk feeling right now?
A lot of love and...
It's over. No.
Don't worry, Sloop.
Oh, we're back.
Don't cry.
For me,
You need a little handkerchief.
Oh, God, I know where that's been.
Thank you so much for that one, Fist and JB, as we are seeing Method NA take that #1 spot, that grand prize of $50,000. And also we're seeing finally another shakeup, I should say, in terms of regions winning LAN. Last year's LAN was won by EU, BlizzCon was won by Oceanic Team, and now our 2019 Spring Finals won by North America as Method NA takes that 3-0 sweep. The grand finals there, but both teams here securing their spot for BlizzCon here, Negura.
Yeah, it's going to be 4 teams from the Western region at BlizzCon, so definitely making sure they're representing their region very well. And just, I'm so glad for Method NA because they've been, always been second. They've been talking about it. We just want to win. We just want to get this #1 spot finally. We're tired of being second and just putting in the work and they're just showing up when it matters. So just well done by Method NA.
Yeah, and as you mentioned before, there's constantly the second places through all the cup tournaments. And going into this, we were saying, who is going to be able to beat it? And our answer was consistently going to be Method NA, if anyone. Now we'll be taking it onto the stage as all the teams are getting their scrolls, getting their quests presented to them to go to BlizzCon at the end of the year here. Seeing Fragnance receiving his scroll as well here, Sloot.
Yeah, I mean, those scrolls are badass.
I
would love one of those things.
I won one.
Yeah, they're very cool. But I mean, congratulations to both teams right now, and it's just amazing performance, and it just goes to show. Method NA is just the perfect embodiment of just don't give up. So many memes against them, so many disappointing second places, so many choked dungeons, and they finally came on top when it mattered for the big prize. They secured their spot to BlizzCon. That wasn't enough for them, and then they just went through and they just claimed the big prize.
They've won the big prize, and indeed, as we're seeing, Method EU are runners-up here, securing that second place and accepting their quest to go to the global finals at BlizzCon at the end of the year. Congratulations to Method EU. And as we take a look at Method NA, unfurling their scrolls as well, receiving their quests, the amount of pride, about these teams. the amount of time that they had to spend on that one, Sours. So much time and effort to be able to get into it.
Oh, this must be the best feeling in the world for these guys pulling out these scrolls. I know they talked about how much it hurt them having to hide all their strategies going into practice for the Cup season. And so now that they have these scrolls, now that they've got the first place and second place, and they've secured their spot for BlizzCon, I'd love to see these guys streaming their time trials, which they said they might even be able to do for the second set of Cups. And so this is, that's some sick swag to put on your wall in the background there.
It's some very sick swag as we see our grand final champions here, Method NA, unfurling their scrolls. Amazing look of excitement there for Yoda.
Shakib is very happy.
Shakib was there, very excited. As he mentioned in the interview before, he did it for the boys, and the boys brought home the #1 prize, Luke.
Yeah, I mean, they did it, man. It's just Sours mentioned it. There's no better feeling right now. Not just because, I mean, yeah, you won the top prize, you secured your spot at BlizzCon, but they've been gunning for this for so long. They've been the little sibling of Method EU throughout the entirety of the Cup. Everybody looked down on them. There was memes going left and right, jokes, and they finally just came out on top. And they did so in an extremely convincing manner, too. They didn't barely squeak by with a 3-2 in the series. They just dominant 3 games and done.
Those 3 games that they perfected. Very few deaths, very few mistakes going forward, and they did earn that $50,000 prize pool at the top of the heap. Method EU securing a $20,000 prize with Abracadabra, and in third with $10,000. You're able to see the breakdown as follows. Those top 2 teams getting the scrolls, getting the quest accepted to be able to go to BlizzCon at the end of the year. Of course, seeding is going to be depending on the amount of points going forward, so as we were mentioning before here, Sours, it's still going to be important to see them doing time trials, seeing them perform in Season 2 with that new Beguiling affix that is now up for PTR testing. Very exciting.
Oh, yeah. So the next season is going to be crazy, right? So it's a whole new expansion. There's going to be the new raid will be out sometime, maybe before the Cups. I'm not quite sure how that'll all break down. But the new affix is out on PTR right now. You can go check out. I've heard some exciting things about it. It sounds really crazy, and seeing that now they don't have to worry about how do I route best around Beguiling in Season 2, because I've got the scroll. I'm ready to go. All they've got to do now is focus on playing the best they can and continue to build up their teamwork, and then they've just got to look forward to BlizzCon, and maybe they'll even be able to do this again at BlizzCon. That'd be even better than this.
We'll be watching them very closely here because they are taking that top spot. But from all of us, we'd like to go down the line. Any last thoughts you might have for us, Lute?
No, I mean, this was just fantastic. I can't wait to see the next season of the MDI. I can't wait to see what Beguiling brings. And just seeing this program grow and seeing these teams just get better and better, and any surprise around any corner has been absolutely fantastic. And it's been a pleasure to be here with everyone except you.
Well, what about you, Nigra?
I totally agree with Sloot. Everything you said.
What? Wait, everything?
What?
Everything.
Somebody pinch me. What's going on, Nigra? Okay, don't actually get away from me.
Sours, finish us up.
Oh, yeah, it's been super awesome to be here in Australia. It's a beautiful country, although the weather hasn't been the best here because it is the winter here. What a surprise, right? But the people here are wonderful. I've met some great kangaroos, and the birds are fantastic birds. And these guys are going to be singing all the way home.
Sam just lost his mind. He's talking to animals in the middle of the street and stuff. What's going on here?
We've lost him from parts unknown multiple times. But from all of us here at ESL Australia, thank you so much for joining us for the Mythic Dungeon International's Spring Finals. The upset at the end of the day, allowing Method NA to be our grand champions of Spring. We will be back in the summertime for Season 2. But from all of us here at Blizzard, at MDI, thank you so much for joining us for the international tournament. It has been an absolute pleasure to be able to bring it to you over the past 3 days. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful night.